People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us. People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us. People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us. People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us. People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us. People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us.
Hello everyone, my name is Michael Ryan. I'm the head of BAA training and we are gathered here today to have a discussion about what positions will be in need post-COVID-19 and how to prepare for them. And I'm joined today by three very distinguished speakers or panelists. I have with me today Chris Smith, a senior lecturer and pilot wellness manager at Jetstar Airlines in Australia. I'm joined as well by Vicky Steele, the international customer experience with Qantas Airlines, and Raj Rahavan, from the senior vice president and head of HR in Indigo. Thank you very much for joining me today and for our discussion. So hopefully people will find this of great interest and they'll have some sort of, given your insights into the aviation industry, they'll be a little bit better off having listened to our discussion today. I suppose I'd like to begin. I mean, I've given out a couple of questions, which I think is very relevant. I'm very conscious that nobody has a crystal ball and nobody has ever seen anything to hit the aviation industry just like what we've experienced. But I suppose your insights and everything would be of benefit to people. I'd like to begin by probably as kind of an introduction question about how the COVID-19 pandemic has affected your airline and the airlines in your region. And I suppose, ladies first, I start with you, Vicky, if I could, please. How has it affected you down in Australia?
You have to unmute yourself, Vicky.
Yeah, we're having difficulty hearing you.
And there we go. Okay.
That's
yeah,
great.
Sure. So hi, everyone. This is my own personal opinion of what's going on. I haven't been given permission by Qantas to speak on behalf of them because everyone is on stand down right now. So the people that needed to sign off on me to represent Qantas today haven't unfortunately got back to me. So just from my own personal perspective, we have over 25,000 team of 25,000 crew, operational staff, from ground staff, pilots, administrative staff, all on stand down, and we have a skeleton staff that are maintaining some type of administration role. Our senior management team are obviously still functioning and trying to work on a step ahead, moving forward with what the governments are allowing, which are changing on a regular basis. So we're at full standby basically to kick off domestically, hopefully within the next few weeks as soon as borders open up. But from an international perspective, we're probably looking at least 6 to 9 months before we'll be able to kick off successfully and push forward past COVID-19. We're probably looking at a good 12-month period from an international perspective.
Okay. Out of those 25,000, Vicky, pilots, do you expect all of your pilots to return to work after COVID-19?
Yeah, I believe so. The forecast and the public opinion poll is that there is still a high demand for travel, both domestically and internationally. And so, we are looking at new aircraft as well. There will be new opportunity for redeployment of staff. So there will most certainly be some type of restructuring opportunity. We were already looking forward to Project Sunrise, which included the longer trips, 18-hour flights, 20-hour flights from Sydney to Chicago and other parts of Europe. And so, we're still going to be pushing forward with Project Sunrise, and that will possibly be on new aircraft that we're negotiating deals with at the moment. So there's definitely room for movement within our technical departments.
Okay.
Sure.
So I take it then from your perspective, again, it's your personal perspective, that it's a very positive attitude you have. So the new normal will include most pilots returning to work.
Yeah, definitely. I think flexibility is a really important issue that all staff need to understand. And, for example, we're retiring a number of aircraft, a number of fleets. So those pilots that are dedicated to those aircraft will need to seek employment again. We don't want to lose that professional body that we have. Our pilots are extremely well trained. We really don't want to see anyone let go, for example. We'll offer again natural attrition and also a redundancy packages will be pushed forward. But yeah, we don't see that it's a negative aspect, but there will be changes within EBAs and restructuring of teams to ensure that we basically are going to meet from a cost basis point of view. We do have to reduce our cost base, and our workforce is one of our most expensive costs and the most easiest to reduce. So definitely, there will be a lot of restructuring going on, is my opinion. But still jobs, and jobs is good.
yeah, indeed. Okay, thanks very much, Vicky.
Sure.
Chris, same questions to you. I mean, what has happened in Jetstar, and what has happened to the pilot cadre that works in Jetstar?
Yeah, Michael, thank you, and thank you, Vicky, as well, because we're basically under a similar umbrella, Vicky, aren't we?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Look, essentially, the operations ceased, and the company was very proactive from that point of view, essentially to stop any excessive bleeding of money and outflow of cash, and they did a really good job of that. Lots of communication with our pilot group and all staff for that matter. I come at it from a few different angles, Michael, because managerially, so I'm on a rotational standout basis, so I actually have there's three components to what I do. So I'm still doing some active flying, not at the moment, but that's what I do. The other part is I have a very large mental health role within our company, and then of course I work for University of Southern Queensland. So with the university, we are actually training pilots. That's what we do, and we're very optimistic from that point of view. So I'm coming here from both sides here. From our point of view, from a university point of view, we're very bullish about the next 5 years. I mean, history tells us that there will be a significant upturn. It'll be slow for a while, but the upturn will be quite marked. There'll be a number of people I expect will leave the industry, which usually happens through times like this. But we're actually in the process of restarting some flying currently, and we're moving to 15 to 40% next month. So that's where we're basically at, and I guess it's very easy, I think, to mistake pessimism for realism in these times. But the truth is, of course, I think the reality is this is where the entrepreneurship actually starts to shine. This is fertile ground for entrepreneurship. So we're about to see them emerge shortly. The downturns or the change in industry structure or any unexpected event like this really brings out those people. So I think we're already starting to see that. It won't be just, I think the growth will not be just reactive to economic climactic conditions, because entrepreneurship will actually drive demand. They want to create the demand. So I'm probably quite bullish about the next 5 years or so. Our students through the university are basically 3-year courses. So this first year will be out in about 3 years' time, and I actually think this is a very good time for them to be entering the industry, to be emerging in a few years' time.
Interesting. A very positive sign from down the Australia-New Zealand area. I was just noticing that New Zealand is COVID-free. I think they've boasted about being COVID-free. So hopefully it's working its way across the world towards us. That's good. Well,
Australia shut down very quickly. They did a good job. I think the government did a good job here and shut down the borders very rapidly in order to get on top of the spread of the virus. And I think it's pretty well recognised. You're right, New Zealand did a great job, and I think Australia's done it as well.
It helps being on an island. I know myself.
It does. And there is quite a lot of pressure now from business and industry of all kinds to actually start to open up the borders now. But I guess understandably, leaders are worried about a second wave, and they're being very cautious about that. But
indeed,
overall, I think good job.
So Raj, over to you. We're working our way across the world. What about you? Indigo holds quite a big share of the market in India. So how has it affected India and COVID-19?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. It's great to be on this panel today. As you said, I'm not a futurist by qualification, but the panel has excellent credentials, including 3 of you who have done phenomenal work globally. As far as India, Mike, the country went on a lockdown starting 25th of March. And today we are technically still in a lockdown, but things started getting loosened up a little bit. So flying started in somewhat a measured way about 2 weeks ago, May 25th to be precise. Just to give you a context, at the best of times, Indigo did approximately 1,800 departures a day, both domestic and internationally. The country has now started in a very small way, as I said. All the departures together is about 600, and Indigo does about 340, give or take a few here or there. We do believe that the domestic consumption in India is going to really come in handy, much like I think Australia or the United States or regional travel in Europe. I think the domestic capacity, domestic consumption will work, as we have seen even with China, who is apparently back in full swing. They were first to get into COVID and probably the first to come out of it. I also saw Vietnam come back. So in the last 2 weeks, the positive story, Mike, is as far as Indigo is concerned, our load factor went up from about 50% when we started to about 70% today. Although the number of flights we are flying is a fraction of what it used to be before. The good part is we all thought this was pent-up demand of people wanting to go back to their homes because they were locked down for 2 months. But it does appear that it's just not pent-up demand, but slowly and steadily regular flying will come back. So I think it's a lot to do with consumer behavior, customer confidence in terms of airplanes being a safe place to do their travel in. And there has been a lot of positive press in terms of why a plane is the last place you will catch a COVID in. As far as Indigo is concerned, Mike, we believe that cash reserves will be king for 2020 and 21, even more than just profitability. And much like Vicky was saying, we are going to take several actions to take cost out, which also means several of us have taken pay cuts. About half the company has taken pay cuts. And we also instituted a furlough or a leave without pay plan. But in all of this, as the head of HR, my team and I are very focused on managing employee engagement, morale, health, especially mental and emotional health. And I think that's going to be a big component. So what happens in India, Mike, is if there is a passenger that's found COVID positive, the crew, both the cabin crew and
I'm
the
losing
crew.
Raj there.
Okay, can you hear me now, or? Am I not audible at all?
Raj, I can hear you still. I can't hear. Mike's frozen.
Okay,
yeah.
Mine just lost there for a minute. I'm back now.
Yeah, you're back now. You're
Sorry,
back now.
I just froze for a minute. Sorry, Raj, you were there saying that. Lost the last minute.
Yeah, I was talking about employee engagement, morale, health, emotional health, and all of that. In India, when a COVID positive passenger is identified, we are grounding the crew for 2 weeks, both the cabin crew and the cockpit crew. So that has two things. One is availability of crew, and number two, their own mental health. And I think a lot of these are being handled by us even as we talk today. And I think going forward, there's going to be a lot in terms of reorganizing the company itself. And I think human resource expertise in reorganizing, and to the extent mergers and acquisitions will all come in handy. At these times, one of the things my executive committee, our CEO, the board, all of us are committed on is to double down on talent management and employee experience, especially employee engagement. We need to keep a look on what people are saying. We are not organized yet. We want to be on top of things. So a bunch of prerogatives for us to be dealing with, Mike.
Okay, it's from a European perspective, it seems to be somewhat similar. I find personally, and there's an awful lot of negativity. There's a constant list of companies that are impending to close down, or there's going to lay off pilots. And I'm dealing specifically with training of pilots, and it's very, very difficult to try and entice pilots into a training environment when you hear all this negativity in the industry. So I'm trying to portray an upbeat message for them. But I think now is the time to be getting into training, because the crisis is now. In 2 years' time, when you finish your training, the crisis will have passed. And you'll be in a better position to start, to be recruited by Qantas or to be recruited by Indigo, and the airlines will at that stage will be on the upslope from the crisis. It's good to see there are green shoots from all of what you were saying. That airlines are starting to start off their domestic services, work within their borders, work within the regions that they can work within where the borders have closed down. So that's an interesting point. The next question I'd like to move on to ask is, like, with the return to service, do you see, and again, it's in your opinion, do you see a recruitment drive, or when would you see a recruitment drive? I know that some of you have referred to the fact that some people may leave the industry as a result of this. So in your opinion, when do you think that we will start to see the first green shoots of airlines advertising? I know that we see some of them already in China looking for pilots. Will we see a recruitment drive coming along again? Can we go back to Vicky again to start with? So we'll start in Australia and work our way west.
Yeah, sure. Mike, Qantas is a very large airline, and we're very lucky in Australia. We have both the domestic routes and the international routes that we are continually expanding, and with affiliation with Jetstar, which I'll let Chris speak of. We're very, very lucky that we do have the scope and ability to be able to offer such a continued recruitment drive. I wouldn't say that necessarily in the short term there's going to be a recruitment drive, say for example in the first 12 months. It will be more of a reshuffle of the people that we have, but certainly within the next 12 to 18 months we do expect that air travel will have picked up and recovered quite dramatically by then. And unfortunately our friends at Virgin are struggling to keep their heads above water. I can't speak for them at all, but and Australia, I doubt that will allow anyone would allow Australia just to have one main airline. Qantas, of course, would love that, but someone else will pop up into the woodworks, whether or not it's Virgin or someone else has taken over Virgin. But so there is an opportunity for Qantas to continue to drive passenger air travel. There is the confidence of the Australians behind 100% backing Qantas and Jetstar. We have an amazing reputation in Australia from a safety perspective. We do have a huge loyalty following along with our frequent flyer program. Domestically as well as internationally. So, and then within the One World Alliance, for example, we continue to explore those opportunities as well. So we can only see positivity ahead. The next 12 months to 18 months will, of course, be the most difficult time to recover from COVID-19. But once that recovery has occurred, so long as nothing else then steps in and causes such disruption, we do see smooth waters and an opportunity to continue to explore opportunity into Project Sunrise and beyond, and then also too with the resourcing of newer aircraft, and the retirement of older fleets, we're continually becoming more innovative, more environmentally friendly, more economic. So there's so much opportunity for us in the next 12 to 18 months to really take this time now to get rid of the old wood, to really look at what we have within our asset portfolio and work our 787s, which is what we've been doing. They're our most efficient aircraft, for example. We haven't been flying the A380s because they're, a very large drain on the economy of Qantas. So, I think it's a very positive outlook once we get through this next 12 to 18 months. But I know that Alan Joyce, from what he's said publicly, he's very positive in what we've got to look forward to. So that's great.
Good. What about Jetstar, Chris? What will happen recruitment-wise there? Do you think that it'll be a further out, or do you think it'll be quite soon that they'll be starting to look for pilots?
You know, as you say, Michael, it's a little bit of a crystal ball picture. However, I tend to agree with your time frame. I actually think my own view would be 2022 would be a very different story. And that's about 18 months away, a really different story. This would be, in my, dare I say, 40-year career, I should stop saying that, but I've had about three major events through that period, you know. Yeah. But it's almost, it's to a T. The bounce back certainly comes out much more strongly than most people realise, and the bigger the downturn, the bigger the upswing, if you like. And it's not to be underestimated, I guess, the degree to which people do leave the industry, and they leave for a number of reasons. It's not always because there isn't a job, but they decide they're going to do something else, you know, or they might move into another branch within this industry. That's quite marked, actually, and people don't actually realise at the time that they would do it, and then they decide to do that. For some, unfortunately, it doesn't. The new regime doesn't really match, the new environment doesn't match, they move on anyway. But most of the pilots, I think, that we have will be available for restart, and I think that would be the case with most airlines here. Certainly the domestic scene is about to kick off here progressively. International, I estimate probably not till next year, but when that does, that'll soak up a lot of pilots here as well. So we certainly wouldn't have a supply problem at the moment. That would be a different story from 2022. And I really agree with your sentiments. Great time to be actually learning to fly. I guess there's a little bit of experience in that, isn't there? That we actually know that's the case, but sometimes it's hard for people to realise that there is going to be an upswing. Yeah. It's a little bit like buying at the bottom of the share market, isn't it? You know, there's inevitably there is one. But that's for us to actually mentor, I think, the younger generation of pilots here. And certainly I'm dealing with those people heavily right now. Yeah,
thank you. Raj, for you, I mean, it's a huge airline, Indigo. I mean, there's over 260 airplanes, and will there be a big recruitment drive? I'm sure there's going to be the HR department in Indigo will be dispatching its interviewers out to keep those aircraft flying. That'll happen fairly soon, surely.
Absolutely, and we'll love for that to happen, Mike. How soon that'll happen is a question, and I think it all depends on how quickly we get to some kind of original capacity. In my mind, much like what Vicky and Chris said, our capacity is probably 12 to 18 months away, and which means that I'm going to have excess headcount, but we would much rather have that than let them go. If you look at regionally, Mike, yesterday, Emirates announced 600 separations of pilots. A week ago, Air Arabia did something similar. So there's, I think where the country or the airline is predominantly focused on international flying, there's going to be some amount of impact. Where there is a one-stop international, I think it's still going to be better off. See, as a passenger, I don't want to be flying in via someplace and then get stuck there because someone's going to find me COVID positive. So all of this is going to determine when our capacity comes back, and the capacity then determines how much hiring is going to happen. At this time, we haven't done any layoffs other than putting our expat pilots on notice. But that's a very small population as compared to the 4,000 pilots that we have. And also, Mike, for the last 3 or 4 years, we have been doing our own farming, if I were to say that. We have a very robust cadet program. We have a tie-up with six different schools internationally where our cadets go and train, and then we have the first right to hire them as junior first officers. So we are continuing to invest in that. We have junior first officers that are starting. So at some point in time, much to what Chris said, probably 2022 or 2023, we may have to go outside. But by then, my intent is to see how quickly I can develop my own food or reap the benefits of my own, sowing the seeds at the right time. So what I don't want to be doing is to go all over the world hiring for hundreds and hundreds of people when I know that I have the time now to kind of go develop, our own pilots, and that's something we are all looking forward to, being busy hiring again. But at this time, we are very focused on reorganizing and employee engagement and getting our planes back flying.
Yeah, like as I said, as I explained, being head of training in an ATO, an approved training organization, I would see that, as I said, now is the time to get into it. But it's managing to convince the kind of the teenagers or the young 20-year-olds to get into the training environment now, knowing that the airlines will be recruiting. I think it goes back to maybe 2008 when we had the financial crisis here in Europe. It was just nobody was willing to get into the construction business because the construction business was probably the most heavily hit. Yet within about 2 years, there was a huge shortfall in architects and people involved in the building trade. So it's now is the time to try and recruit and to tell these young people that yes, aviation will turn around, and it's a convincing of that. The next question I'd like to talk about is that there are going to be layoffs. They're certainly highlighting it an awful lot here in Europe. As people who are involved in aviation, what would you say to an individual who finds himself? I know, Chris, you kind of highlighted it. Maybe it's time for them to move on into something else and maybe have a look at some other industry. But what would you say to about maybe upskilling, or for pilots to get into maybe go back to flying schools or to become a trainer in some form or other? What sort of upskilling would you recommend, or what would you say to pilots who are being furloughed? Can I start again with you, Vicky?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Mike. So Qantas have been running a secondary employment program offering all of our employees who have been stood down the opportunity to train complementary within a particular area, and those areas have been around IT, security, HR. There's every pillar basically, because a lot of the organisations, not just obviously airlines, have been affected by COVID-19. So, for example, Telstra here in Australia, one of their call centres was situated overseas. Now, that call centre was closed down pretty quickly, and very quickly they needed to establish a call centre here in Australia to take over those roles. So Qantas was really quick to actually accommodate a lot of our employees into a redeployment program through companies such as Woolworths, Telstra, and a number of others, and are still ongoing and continually looking to offer redeployment to, or secondary employment to all of our staff, which has been amazing. And the continued conversation every week, there's updates, there's our HR department is open and open for business and ready to help any employee who needs the help with their resume or upskilling, moving into a new area, taking the opportunity to do something that maybe they just haven't had time to do all their life because they've been flying and they've been overseas for 90% of their life, and all of a sudden they're on stand down now with all this time on their hands. So it has been an opportunity for people to redevelop themselves and explore themselves and see where their strengths are and what they've been missing out on. So it's been very positive at Qantas from an employment point of view. And in Australia we have JobKeeper rather than furlough, so it's a similar scenario. And at this stage we've got JobKeeper until September, so all of our employees are on JobKeeper, and then getting the top up of a secondary employment, which is fantastic. So we couldn't have asked more of Qantas and our HR team to assist our employees in asserting themselves to find new roles or to look for new interests. So yeah, we just hope we don't lose too many of them when it's time to come back.
Indeed, yeah. What about you, Chris?
To me, this is the era of the double qualification. This is the era of the non-linear career, not just a linear career. So we know that the industry has peaks and troughs, and they can be quite marked. That's always been a concern for pilots, hasn't it? You know, that their qualification can be all or nothing. But to smooth those troughs out and to reduce the concern attached to those which may impact upon their ability to look after their families, their own career, their own job satisfaction, I really recommend double qualification. That doesn't mean external to the industry, it can mean internal. And this goes for new students who I'm dealing with now, master students. It also goes for mature age people. In other words, people who've been flying for a long time. I went back to university when I was 38, you know, and started there, and I'm still there, you know. So that, and it's been a really great avenue for me. But therefore, I really encourage people to look at what makes them tick, what it is, whether it's safety management, industrial relations, psychology, and link that to this career. For example, the mental health area for the moment is a very big growth area within all industries, particularly in the last 15, 20 years. We're actually talking about that, but how you actually apply that, which is where my interest came from, and that's my current study, higher research study attached to that. So those sorts of programs are now, as you know, are mandated across Europe, and because we've had those peer support programs here for a long time. So I look after, for example, that area right across our businesses in Japan and Singapore and Vietnam, New Zealand and Australia as well. That's my responsibility. But that has built, I've got to say to you, such a wonderful avenue for me. And I actually strongly suggest that people actually look at those. For example, the younger students, when they're learning to fly and looking at and running through their theory subjects, to actually see what sparks them as well. You may not pursue it now, but certainly pursue it later. And it's often applicable inside and outside the industry. So the non-linear career path for me, I strongly recommend that, which means a linear career basically straight up the normal line, so trainer captain, check captain, you know, that line, which is fine. But also, if you've got another interest in safety investigation, IR, it doesn't matter what it is. Generally these days, you can build that into your career somewhere.
Yeah. Okay, Raj, same question to you about what you think. What's your opinion on that?
I think what Chris has said, makes a lot of sense. I would call it Uberization of employment. A couple of weeks ago, Mike, I was talking to a young student of management in a local school who I mentor. And she was asking me, Raj, you've been in HR 30 years. Firstly, I don't think I can do that, 30 years. Secondly, I don't even know if I'm going to survive that long. But I like music. I like to cook. I like to bake. I like HR as well. So do you think I can have a career where I can do all these four? I said, oh, really? I don't know. But you can certainly do HR in 2-3 different companies. But I think there's going to be a time, Mike, when people are going to say, I'm not going to just sing in a pub for the weekend, but I'm probably going to do it every day of the week. And during the day, you know, if you can let me do flying, I can. As far as Indigo is concerned, there are a lot of skills that we locally train for. We run probably one of the largest training schools, aviation in this part of the world ever has. And some skills are not even taught in any school. For example, network planning, revenue management, operations control centers. I'm not even talking about the pilots or the engineers here. I think these are things that my talent management team is going to double down on. Can I get people who are interested in learning network planning but are currently pilots? For all you know, they may not want to do it, but there could be an engineer that wants to do it. So we are looking at all kinds of opportunities and possibilities at this time, including possibilities of can I be a part-time worker, a gig worker, if not an Uberization possibility.
Okay, it's interesting. I was a late starter in in my master's. I went off to the City University in London and I studied my master's, but I only qualified from that last year. But I think it's one of the great things is that while you have time as a pilot, is probably to diversify into something else, is to, like you said, the accident investigation, safety, human resources, other areas that are available to pilots and are part of the industry. I suppose it's probably considering that we've had volcanic ash over here in Europe, but we've had the September the 11th, we've had these crises coming along, SARS crisis coming along as well. These kind of things teach pilots not to be kind of just one-skilled or having just one string to their bow. They probably need to kind of diversify a small bit and get other things. But I certainly think from a training point of view, now is the time, I feel, now is the time for pilots probably to look at probably upskilling. They have time in their hands. They may not have the finances, but if they can in any way at all, is probably try to upskill. I'd like to move on next to the next question, and this is probably crystal ball time. I know that we don't have one, but we've seen a huge trend and huge expansion, and I referred back to IATA and their vision for 2050 and the constant curve as it rises all the time. Do you think that this COVID-19 will be a blip and that we will return to the graph, the high angled graph of recruitment and pilots? Or do you think that there will be a complete change? Do you think that there will be less pilots required? I know that we've spoken about maybe the regionalisation of the industry, but do you think that there will be still a huge requirement in the future, like what we've seen on the trend? Do you think that will happen? Vicky?
Yeah, Mike. Well, from Project Sunrise point of view, if we're looking at 18 to 20-hour flights, we're looking at doubling our pilot capacity straight away. So, domestically, for example, would have 2 pilots in the flight deck, but travelling through from Perth to London, for example, we've got 4 pilots. We could be looking at having 5 to 6 pilots once we go to Project Sunrise. So, for example, the opportunity for more second officers coming through and flight engineers coming through, the opportunity for younger people to more quickly get into the airline industry, I think is most definitely there from the Qantas perspective because of Project Sunrise. So for sure, it's a great opportunity that we've got looking ahead. And I think that everything that Alan Joyce has been putting in place so far in directing and, looking at contracts, pilots' contracts and pushing Project Sunrise, he's achieving very, very quickly. And if COVID-19 hadn't have struck, we'd be looking at Project Sunrise operating from now and would really have expanded our pilots program. So as soon as this COVID-19 is done and dusted and the opportunity for us to fly internationally again, it's a huge opportunity for Qantas to continue to explore Project Sunrise.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Okay, good. Well, Chris, do you think that the trend will continue, the high trend will continue?
I do. If we take a medium-term view, absolutely, Mike. There was a change happening already in recent years, wasn't there, to higher volume of smaller aircraft, long-haul, single aisle. It was on anyway. As populations increase, the increase in the middle classes in certain countries by volume, populations are increasing. So I don't see that abating at all. So do I think it'll be a blip? Yeah, it might be. It's going to be a slow year or two, but I don't think it's going to stay that way, and not by any stretch of the imagination. We, by virtue of the university, we're also linked into the Qantas Future Pilot Program, which is actually a training program in itself, which funnels straight into Qantas, and we're still providing pilots into that program. So clearly, we're in the medium term, we're quite optimistic about the future there. But I really think, from a structural point of view, this change was happening anyway. Probably the very large aircraft may decrease by proportion, but certainly the long haul high volume, higher service, frequency operations. I don't see that changing at all. Not with the new generation of lighter, smaller, medium, jets, Airbuses, and the smaller 737s.
Yeah. Well, Raj,
that will drive it.
Yeah. Well, Raj, your crystal ball. Would you see the trends?
No, very similar. I think from an Indigo standpoint, Mike, we are committed to taking deliveries of planes that we were committing to take anyways. And that's going to be, in this year, we are talking of anywhere between 30 to 50 planes, even as we retire some of the old planes. Secondly, I think in the feeder markets and metro to non-metro within India and one non-metro to another non-metro, we still see a lot of uptake for smaller planes like the ATRs. And there are not many trained pilots available for ATRs today. We still went to the Southeast Asian countries to hire from countries like Philippines and Indonesia. And that's a feeder pipeline my team and I are focused on. We were just about getting ready for a cadet program for the ATR fleet, and we would have launched it if not for COVID-19 coming, but we will still go and launch it. I think, we need to be ready for the future, Mike. We don't have a crystal ball, nor are we all futurists, but I do support the positivity that I see in the other countries, China, Vietnam, for example, and in other industries. So I think the last thing that as an HR professional, I don't want to be doing is to not be ready for lapping up what's in the future. That said, the immediate future may not look all that encouraging, but if you were to even take a medium-term view, just about a year ago, Mike, we were all around the world. We went as far as Buenos Aires, Colombia, Chile, to go hire for pilots. Now, in a year's time, and a virus comes and says that you're not going to be doing anything more, doesn't appeal to my conscience. So I think the future's there, and I think this is where I think people like us will be seen as a lot of value adding to the corporation, to be able to foresee things that otherwise your accountant can't because of the focus on cash.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I've seen it myself with some airlines parking up their larger aircraft. It exactly says what you've all been saying, really, is the large long haul aircraft have been parked up. Prior to me coming to BAA training as the head of training, I was flying the 737 MAX for Norwegian. And we were flying it from Dublin across to Hamilton in Canada, Providence in Rhode Island, and we were flying it to Stewart, which is a small airport just in upstate New York. And the aircraft was full. It was 189 seats. We were able to fill the MAX all the way across the Atlantic. The passengers absolutely loved it, but they were flying to exactly where they wanted to go. So I think this hub and spoke effort seems to be going, and the point to point with the smaller aircraft. So therefore, if they're going to have smaller aircraft, they're going to need more pilots to be able to operate this. So I think that the positivity is there. That would be my crystal ball, is that I think that there will be plenty of requirements and plenty of recruitment for pilots into the future. So look, we're coming towards the end of our chat, but there's one final question, and I'm pulling this one out of the hat, and it's if I want you to imagine that I was a 20-year-old school leaver, and I was going to join the airline, and I happened to meet you on the street, and what are you going to say to me? So are you going to encourage me to join the airline? Are you going to encourage me to invest my money in a flying school? What advice would you give to a young, impressionable individual who wants to get into aviation now? What would you say to them?
Mike, I would certainly say it, if that's where their heart is and that's where their passion is, you can never take that away from them, and they should be following their dream. And, all pilots, they're born to it. It's like a footballer is born to their football, and, a basketballer is born to their basketball. You just can't take their wings away. And if that's their dream, there's a huge amount of financial sacrifice to achieve it. There's a lot of giving up family time to to achieve it. You know, it is a huge give and take of your lifestyle. You know, you are spending your life out of a suitcase and sleeping in a different hotel room most nights. You know, you're away from home for long periods of time, and you're missing out on special events as well. So all of that has to be highly worth it. But, you know, if that's where your heart and soul is in flying, then it's all worth it, because at the other end of it, you know, we do have the flexibility of flying schedules, and you can ask for some time off, and, you know, you can meet those other needs, your own personal needs as well, and accommodate those people around you whilst following your dream and becoming a pilot. So yeah, I think it's an amazing opportunity for young people to become involved in now, looking to the future. And particularly in Australia, you know, we have a wonderful climate ahead, both domestically and internationally. So, and we have, you know, I would have to say some of the best trained pilots in the world that fly for Qantas. So for those young people wanting to come and explore the opportunity within Australia, you know, to be mentored by our Australian pilots, for example, is just such a great beginning for them as well. So yeah, good luck to them, and I would say come on board, welcome.
Right, my CV is in the post, Vicky.
Great.
Right, Chris, it's your turn.
Yes, that's a hard act to follow, but I tell you what, I'd absolutely support everything Vicky said. You know, I often address children or young people of just school age, you know, just leaving school, and I tell them about my career. You've probably done the same thing, and I say to them, you know, I've been doing this about 40 years, and with all the ups and downs, with all the associated stressors, with all those issues that go with it, I would do it all again. And, you know, flying, as Vicky alluded to, you've got to love it. It's not something you go into just because it might be nice to do. There's an enormous commitment to it, career risk in terms of success or not, and usually and we find that through all educational institutions. The ones who are really committed will make it. If not, then they tend to drop out somewhere along the way. If they really, really want to do this, now is an excellent time, and they should pursue that, because there's nothing sadder than someone who never actually pursued their dream. I agree with Vicky in that regard. Now is a very good time. When I started all those years ago, my friends and a lot of people saying to me, "Oh, you'll never get a job. You'll never do it." You know, well, we did. So you know, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. Raj, what are you going to say to the young kids in India or in Southeast Asia when you go look at them to fly your ATRs? What are you going to tell them, or what are you going to say to them?
Yeah, it's not easy to follow the two of them, because I think they've said all the right things. The only thing I can add is being a pilot is a very high social status in my part of the world. Most pilot friends that I know of have made it to their standard of living by virtue of their occupation. And then they have their children who have gone into becoming pilots, etc. All I would say is if your dad has enough money to send you to a pilot school, go take advantage of it right now, because, you know, in a couple of months' time, he's going to change his mind. So you may as well take it now. And
Yes.
As a recruiter of pilots, I would think, oh my God, I'm going to get to recruit one person less, you know, because I need to anyway be hiring all of them. So I can probably go hire this 20-year-old than dissuade him from him or her doing it.
Yeah, that's it. I think a lot of them, you know, are a little bit reluctant, and I think the younger generation, the Generation Z, as we call them now, everything has to be very structured for them. So I think that the turmoil that they're witnessing with the pandemic is probably a little bit disconcerting for them, and there's probably a little bit of apprehension, I suppose, to get involved in it. But one of the things we teach pilots is resilience. You know, we have to be resilient, and I think now, I suppose the real thing is how to prepare for it now. Is now is the time to get into aviation. You know, fuel is cheap. Training there should be plenty of scope and plenty of availability at schools. So. Yeah, I think you're all, it's the same idea. We all have the same concept. Well, guys, listen, that's come to the end of it. I really appreciate your time. I think giving up of your time for some of these webinars is really well appreciated by me. I'd like to thank you for answering my difficult or maybe not so difficult questions. Vicky, many thanks to you, and best of luck with everything down in Qantas. Chris, sure. Really thanks as well to you for your answers and for your time as well. Raj, really appreciate it, and for giving a good insight into what. And I think to sum it all up, I think we're all fairly positive about the future. Okay, there will be positions available after the COVID-19, and I think that the way to prepare for it is to get involved in aviation immediately, get into training now, because in 2 years' time, when you come out of it, or when you have your type rating completed, I think that it'll be a changed market, it'll be a new normal, but it'll probably be a better normal. Okay, thanks very much for all, really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Keith Butler. I'm the Managing Director of CEE Park Aviation. CEE Park Aviation is the world's leading crew resource management company. Today, what I would like to do is share with you our views on how airlines are responding to the current crisis and how they are evolving their strategies for crew resource management for both now and into the future. As airlines respond to the evolving crisis around the world, we've taken the opportunity to examine in detail the different responses across different sectors of the industry that airlines are taking regarding their future strategies for crew resource management. Today, we'll take a look at the actual actions that airlines are currently undertaking, and more importantly, what the long-term implications of those actions will have regarding their approach to crew resource management and their future competitiveness as a result of those actions. Whilst there is a huge amount of uncertainty at the moment regarding the aviation industry and the future outlook, there's two things which are absolutely clear. Firstly, that the industry will recover. And secondly, that the recovery will not be smooth or linear for all airlines. We're seeing that the market outlook varies from all the different forecasts that we have analysed. Some analysts are saying that the recovery will be an 18-month recovery, and others are saying it will stretch out to 3 years. Irrespective of the shape or the duration of the recovery that we face, we have identified three very clear and obvious phases that will have a direct impact on crew resource management for airlines. The first phase is the phase that we're currently facing, which is the reset phase, which will take us through the next number of months. We will then be quickly into the responding phase, where airlines will have to manage their crew in a very highly volatile and uncertain marketplace. And then finally, there's the long-term recovery phase, the post-crisis phase, where the actions that airlines take today will shape that phase in the future. let's have a deeper look at each of these phases and its implications for airlines today. The first, in terms of the current phase that we're currently faced with, which is the reset phase. Airlines are across the globe are deeply focused on the short-term measures that need to be taken to ensure survival. Naturally, cash management and cost reductions are the prioritised initiatives. However, this short-term focus, as a result of both time and resource pressures that airlines face, run the risk of a failure to address long-term structural issues that many airlines have faced for quite some time. And the real question is, for people who are responsible for managing crew resourcing in airlines, is, are there long-term opportunities being missed due to the pressures that the current crisis place upon us and the requirement for short-term focusing at this point in time? One of the key challenges airlines will face is that whilst they are currently faced with very short-term pressures, once operations restart over the coming weeks and months, we will quickly be into the respond phase of any resource management strategy. In this phase, we will see very high volatility in the demand environment, and we will see a natural capacity and demand imbalance. What that means from a crew resource management perspective is that flexible and reactive crew management strategies need to be adopted. It means that airlines will face significant cost management challenges as they try to optimize resourcing in a highly volatile and constantly changing environment. This will pose significant pressures in terms of crew relations, in terms of crew planning, and from a HR management perspective. One of the other perspectives in this stage of the recovery phase to be mindful of is that there will be a high level of talent availability. And this is an opportunity for airlines to plug gaps or deficits that they see in their talent pool. The success of an airline in this period in terms of responding to this volatile environment will be critical to the competitiveness that they can deliver. And finally, we will have the recovery stage, the post-crisis stage, where we will see a return to full resources. There will be a new baseline established from an optimization perspective and from a cost perspective. What we will see is incremental benefits that may have been achieved in the early phases will start to flatten out. But we will also see, and this will happen remarkably quickly, we will actually see that the recruitment market will tighten again. That the tightness we've seen within particularly the pilot market in the last 3 years will resume as you get back up to 2019 production levels. And that in turn will bring about new cost inflation pressures. So airlines have a window of opportunity over the next 12 to 18 months to reset the bar and to prepare themselves for what will be this return to normality. And it's at this phase, in 18 months to 2 years' time, that the actions taken today will be properly assessed. It is at this stage where it will be determined whether the current opportunities that exist for resetting and reimagining your crew resourcing model will be truly determined. So, what are airlines doing at the moment in terms of reviewing and reimagining what their future resourcing model should be? Well, what we've seen in terms of our engagement with airlines and in terms of our market overview is that there are a number of important factors that airlines are trying to deal with. The first is they're trying to establish a permanent resetting of their unit cost base and future-proof any cost savings that can be achieved at the moment. More importantly, we are seeing airlines examining in much more detail the opportunities to shift from a fixed cost base to a variable cost base. This shift enables airlines to build in flexibility to deal with the volatility that will be inevitably part of the aviation industry in the short term, but also in the medium term. And it also builds in reactiveness, both from a defensive perspective in terms of responding to any evolving crisis, but also in terms of availing of opportunities. And an increased variable cost base, crew cost base, also allows airlines to de-risk operations. Again, both in terms of de-risking entry into new markets, entry in terms of pursuing new opportunities that will inevitably present themselves as a side effect of the current crisis. And finally, one of the things we have seen is airlines taking this opportunity to refocus on their core competencies, to appreciate what they're good at and also appreciate where they could be better, and to understand and explore ways of actually seeking help in terms with areas that they may not feel that they have a particular strengths in. So what we are definitely seeing across the market is that airlines are using these abnormal situations to undertake and examine radical transformation, because the current environment removes the usual obstacles that airlines face in undertaking radical change programs. So what does all this mean in practice? Well, we engage with dozens and dozens of airlines on a weekly basis all across the globe and all across every segment. And we've definitely seen significant trends in terms of airlines exploring more and more new ways of doing business in the future. In the most extreme examples, we are seeing a large number of airlines explore the potential of full crew management outsourcing to essentially partner with companies like ourselves to provide full crew outsourced opportunities, because this delivers the flexibility, it delivers the cost the cost transparency, and it delivers the optimization that they may not be able to achieve through an in-house solution. We are also seeing airlines re-examine the possibility of outsourced training from both a delivery and a planning perspective. This enables them to remove quite significant fixed cost base within their existing operation, and also access increased expertise. We're partnering with airlines to provide external planning support. And this manifests itself in both short-term and long-term opportunities. In the short term, we see airlines are struggling to deliver the crew modelling and crew scenario planning that this crisis creates. And we work with airlines, and we are working with airlines to provide some external support to beef up their internal teams. In the longer term, we are seeing airlines make decisions to invest in increased crew optimization and management capabilities. And this is because they appreciate that they're going to experience a much more volatile environment in the future and need extra firepower above and beyond maybe their previously Excel-based. This is particularly for smaller and medium-sized airlines who are looking for solutions without significant capital investment. We're also seeing companies and airlines re-explore flexible resourcing models, whether that's seasonal resourcing opportunities, whether that's having a percentage of contract crew as part of their model to provide a degree of flexibility, or in some instances, we're seeing airlines explore block hour pricing models, which will deliver, which is designed to really align their crew cost base with our operating model. As I said earlier, this crisis always presents market opportunities as a result of the disruption that we see in the market. However, they can present enormous risks. So we are seeing airlines explore ways of entering new markets, expanding their operations or reshaping their operations, and looking for support in areas where they may not be familiar, in dealing with regulators in new markets, or dealing with employment legislation or crew market conditions that they may not be familiar with. And finally, we are also seeing airlines explore the opportunity for shared services, where they cannot achieve an appropriate return on investment from building internal capabilities, whether that's from a HR management perspective, whether that's from a planning perspective, or whether that's from a payroll perspective. There is definitely a move towards exploring what needs to be done in-house, what the core competencies airlines currently have, and what assistance and efficiencies can be gained from outsourcing. So a lot of these decisions are very bold decisions that airlines are making, decisions that exploration that they would not have taken over recent years due to internal resistance or due to a lack of management focus. And the real question that airlines have to ask themselves is, can they afford not to be bold during this crisis? Their competitors are, as we currently speak, taking actions to undertake structural reform of their cost base or increase their long-term competencies and capabilities. And if you're not doing that as an airline, the real question is, what are the long-term competitive implications for you not doing so? So I hope that has given you a good overview as to our insight into the market as it currently is, as to how airlines are responding to the current crisis. If you need assistance in terms of reimagining your own crew operations strategy, we're available to help. We are dealing with companies on a day-to-day basis who are reviewing their strategic options, tailoring solutions to specific circumstances, whether that be defensive, retrenchment, or opportunistic growth. We have the expertise in-house to support you in whatever you may face. So thank you very much, and I hope you found this useful.
People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us.
Hello everyone, this is Laumir from Kiwi.com. I'm a Senior Business Development Manager, and today I would like to guide you through the innovative technology that helps passengers to search and book better. I would like to introduce you to our virtual interlining technology, how we are building the world's first virtual global supercarrier, what is in there for passengers, for the airlines, and also the airports. Kiwi.com has been on the scene for more than 8 years, mastering the virtual interlining technology, and in the pre-corona time, we had more than 100 million searches, translated into more than 35,000 seats booked per day, combining more than 750 different carriers. So what exactly is this virtual interlining? Virtual interlining is a sophisticated algorithm that is combining various segments into one single itinerary. It can be the segments of the low-cost carriers, full-scale carriers, cooperating or not even cooperating, but nowadays also adding the trains and the buses. As I mentioned, it's all coming into one single itinerary that is supported by just one single payment, and it also comes with just one single point of contact, regardless to which carrier you want to add which service, being the seats or the luggage, but also in the case if anything happens on your way. All these connections are guaranteed by so-called Kiwi.com guarantee. It works exactly the same way, like when you're connecting with one airline or with the codeshare airlines. When there's a flight delay, when there's different kinds of schedule change or cancellations, we're the ones providing you with the alternative transportation to get you into your final destination, or we provide you the refund. But what will be the next step? Imagine that you have only one platform where you can book your travel from any point of A to any point of B, being it just a local ride to your restaurant, or actually the restaurant in your destination, where you don't know what is the ride-hailing solution in that. Or you want to go to the neighboring city, and you don't need to explore what are the different bus operators or the different train operators. Or the same platform will be able to get you from your home in Florida to see us in our office transatlantic in Brno, Czech Republic. I believe most of you don't even know where the Brno, Czech Republic is. So imagine that you will have only one carrier you need to book with. You will do it without any difficult research of various providers. All you need to do is just one payment for the one single itinerary, and in case you need anything, there is only one customer support you need to contact. This is the idea of the virtual global supercarrier. Virtual interlining technology has helped our passengers in many ways already, and one of the models that actually is helping quite a lot is the so-called Nomad model. Nomad organizes your destinations in order that it brings the most attractive pricing for your whole journey. It is the very smart alternative to the Alliance's own region passes or the round-the-world fares. It's much easier for booking and ticketing, and it includes also the ground transport options. And again, it comes just with one single point of contact in case of any service, regardless which carrier you're just about to fly or travel. This is the introduction, what is in there for the passengers. But how about the airlines that cooperate with us? The very simple answer at the very beginning is that you're just extending your network virtually without any need for the special SPAs and the difficult codeshare or interlining agreements. You can easily boost your sales just by getting more connecting traffic that can be supported by the various special fares used just for the connecting traffic. On top of that, for our cooperating airlines, we have also the white label solutions. White label solution simply allows you to sell the whole world from your own website. And as we all know, the data is the gold of these days. And with our big distribution capabilities, we have a huge amount of the search data that we can provide. Let's dig a bit deeper into the topic that we mentioned, how the airline can actually boost their sales with the virtual interlining. As you can see on the picture on the right side, there is one itinerary. It's the itinerary of the two airlines that do not cooperate together, so they are connected with the virtual interlining. As you can also see at the bottom, there is only one fare, and that's the fare for the whole itinerary, so for the whole journey for the passenger. Passenger doesn't see what are the individual fares of the airlines, and that makes it a great tool for the revenue management, where they can simply hide the fares that they don't want to show on their point-to-point. Therefore, we are not undercutting the pure point-to-point traffic, where you can keep your high yield for, let's say, the business passengers, but you can get additional connecting traffic in connection in the package with connection to the other airline or being the train on the bus. Now let's talk a little bit more about the white label. As we mentioned, white label enables you to sell actually the same itineraries as we have, so meaning the whole world from your own website. It's a very easy implementation. You can do your own personalization either on the graphical side, but also personalization on the partner selection side. As an example, you can see the AirAsia white label at the bottom. We can consult you on a search field optimization, how to actually make the best, which destinations to put there that the customers are looking in the connection mainly with your airlines. And all that itineraries are covered by the Kiwi.com guarantee. And of course, again, as you mentioned, data insight, as data are the key, are also provided next to it. As I already mentioned, AirAsia is one of our great examples where the white label solution is working. And you can see on the right side, the poster where AirAsia is actually boosting the sales outside of the network. We discussed more about the airlines. Now, let's say what is in there also for the airports. In these years, that we've been on the scene, we have shown to many airports that consider themselves only as a point-to-point airports that they have a quite significant share of the connecting traffic. And then with a further cooperation with them, we have actually created what we call Kiwi.com Hosted Stopover program. That program has various levels of the cooperation, and the very first level is already the MCT optimization. Just by adjusting the minimum connecting time that is being guaranteed by the airport, our algorithm can create more connections via your airport and thus bringing you the more passengers. You can support these faster connections with the various products that we simply put together as a smart pass. It can be either offering the fast track, getting through the security, or helping with the checked baggage. Additional products are similarly as with the airlines, white label solution, or for example, the data insight that we're going to talk also a little bit further on. We also looking for the if you're looking for the marketing promotion, we are also offering the additional promotion on our Kiwi.com stories. Kiwi.com stories is, let's call it the one-stop hub for the traveling inspiration that is very much popular these days. And some of the examples that you can see is the Boot Connects, the picture on the right side. Boot Connects is the program, hosted stopover program with the Budapest airports, where at this kiosk, you can get the help if you're the self-connecting passenger with the Kiwi.com. A little bit more about these products. As I mentioned, the Smart Pass, in case, or as you want to make the minimum connecting time workable on your airport, in many cases, you need to provide a fast track to really make the passenger make his way through the security on time. Offering these kind of products like the fast track or the check bag handling assistance, when we show it in the search, we've seen that it actually makes these connections more attractive for the passengers, and thus actually the passenger will rather choose the connection via your airport. And this brings you additional passengers. On the right side upper is, for example, the white label solution that any airport can have. This one is the example from the London Stansted Airport. To our participating airports, we are providing the data insights with the airport dashboard, where it shows you what are the airlines that are actually connecting at your place, where the customers are coming from, where they're heading to, what is actually the country of origin, nationalities, and and various details. And additionally to that, I would like to talk also about the Travel Market Radar. That is so far the working name for our search data. We understand that search data, so the ones that customers are looking for, are now very, very are kind of the very gold of these days. You can find out, especially in these days, where are the people willing to fly again? We understand that after the corona, people will not be really willing to travel anywhere, and you can see by the searches what are the destinations to focus on from the very beginning. You can understand where and when the demand be coming, so simply to fully understand the potential of your airport or the airlines. And why Kiwi.com search data? They are one of the most comprehensive search data. It's not only the Kiwi.com data that are coming directly to our traffic, but as we are distributed among more than 500 different distribution partners, being it all big metas, but also different OTAs from the big ones to the very small ones, we have a really huge database of the search data possible. And they're available either as a raw data or as the interactive dashboard. And now, some good news for any other distribution partners, OTAs, who would like to benefit from this virtual interlining content. We make it very much easier to get this content with our Tequila platform. Tequila platform is a simple registration platform where you can immediately, after registering, get the production environment with the API keys. The API implementation is very simple. In this one environment, you're going to have all your management, reporting, dashboards, or actually even the booking management. And in case of any question, our partner success team is here to support you anytime. Thank you for watching and listening, and hope to get in touch with you very soon.
People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us.
Topic of my talk today is why and how of COVID robots. Well, while robotics has come to mainstream after, let's say, several decades as a preventive measure to COVID, the real reasons why I build robots are same before era of COVID, core reasons have been same for a very long time. And fundamentally because of two reasons. One, for a very long time, a language has been developed and is currently developing between humans and machines and everything in between, like surrogates and avatar. And we need to utilize that language. We need to recognize that particular language, especially in a generation which is born with devices, especially in mobile phones and all kinds of apps. Second reason is in the realms of computer science, with compute and storage costs going down rapidly. Resurgence of unstructured languages have fueled AI and especially machine learning. And given both these hypotheses, if you mix both of them, then making or building a robot makes a lot of sense. Even though the current epidemic which we are having, and especially in the pre-vaccination era, where fear of contact dominates human brain and robotics has gained tons of limelight, the reasons to build robots are again mainly two. One, high productivity, high performance. And second thing, continuous definition of job, redefine employment. Now, productivity makes a lot of sense when it comes, when it reduces cost, when it is cost effective. It has happened in past during previous industrial revolutions, mostly in the area of manufacturing, specifically in automobile, mining, and so on and so forth. But we are living in strange times now where whenever we speak about robotics, then politics of employment comes, and we should not mix these two. Instead of making robotics as a discussion of future employment or skill creation and betterment of society, we should focus on these elements. It personally pains me whenever I see a human brain doing a single activity again and again, and mostly, when humans don't want to do those activities. They do it either because it has become part of their muscle memory, or fundamentally there is a pressure to earn livelihood. These attributes should not be the right reasons to work. Right reasons should be to create something, to continuously educate oneself, to continuously improve environment. And that's fundamentally are the right principles on which we can create robots. And when I talk about robots, I talk about robots which are pretty straightforward, which are pretty simple in nature. I don't talk about complexity of robotics, which lies in the realms of space or heavy machinery or something like that. Now, since the topic is in the context of COVID, so let's try to understand, why COVID robots, and how to build them, and what it takes to build them. Few questions come into into head. Could robots be effective in combating epidemic? Well, answer to that particular question lies in another question. Can we improve conditions of healthcare workers or frontline staff across industries by using robotics? And that answer is a pretty straightforward answer. That answer is yes. To build a simple COVID robot, 5 capabilities are required, and those are: 1, environmental perceptions, human interaction, target recognition, knowledge reasoning, and trajectory planning. If a machine, if a robot is capable of doing these 5 things, or has got capability of these 5 elements, then it certainly can be of high use in this era, and specifically in a pre-vaccination era, where contact or a fear of contact is dictating almost every aspect of life, whether it is business or whether it is personal. Now, whenever we talk about this particular role of COVID robots, we have to do it in a context of both health and economy. If you're, just because we are going through a strange kind of a phase where fear dominates everything, given what we are doing, and given the research, and given the build-up in terms of finding a solution, just to create a machine to solve this problem of fear may not be sustainable. So there should be right reasons why we want to build these robots, and we carry on these robots as a natural progression, or a natural transformation of industries, and multiple industries. For example, if you use healthcare, robotics can be used in clinical care, telemedicine, and initial diagnostics. They can be used in logistics, that is delivery and handling of contaminated waste. They can be used for observations, very, very primary observations related to monitoring of instruments, and helping in terms of voluntary, quarantines. Now, if you take all these 3 examples in a specific domain of healthcare, these are as much applicable today as they will be in future. But the challenge will be that, humans do these jobs today, and we have to reskill them, and that reskillment has to happen quickly. Another example we can take is an example in manufacturing industry. Robots can make a difference. Continuity of work in manufacturing plants. Manufacturing plants can attain great amount of economic benefits just from the continuity. Now, it's not possible for humans today to, because of quarantines and because of restriction and social distancing, to come to manufacturing plants. But there would be certain activities which are repetible in nature, and those repetible activities can be converted into robotic activities. But then there is another question: while we attain efficiencies, we need to reskill the workforce and utilize that particular workforce in terms of expansion of that particular business beyond COVID. Provide remote access to applications, which require manipulations. For example, if you want to manage network operating centers, if you want to manage, remote cybersecurity or or operational centers of any nature, those can be remotely done. Robots can be on premises, and humans can do that remotely. So combination of robotics and human and the remote human technologies can help in terms of management of manufacturing plants, operating plans, operations, across industries. If you take another, domain, for example, in services industries, there's a lot of talk. One of the things which has come out of this this pandemic is hygiene. And I've always questioned that why humans should utilize other humans for cleansing, cleaning, and hygiene-related activities. I have rarely found someone who is passionate to do that particular work. So disinfecting surroundings, whether it is through non-contact ultraviolet or just cleansing surfaces or waste management, can be easily done by robotics. Disinfecting surroundings, by spraying chemicals, sanitizing, cleaning desks, cleaning cafeterias, cleaning washrooms, all that can be done through robotics. But then, it should not stop here. It should become a part of an exercise where transformation has moved away from, human interventions to robotic automations. And there's several, examples of similar nature. There's several examples. You look at counters. You look at counters at airports. You look at counters or receptions at hospitals. You look at counters and receptions at banks. All these things can be, replaced by using combination of robotics and software engineering per se, and that's and the right reasons should not be fear of COVID. It is far more applicable, as I said. Because everybody wants to avoid contacts in today's context. I don't think this kind of fear will be sustainable for a very, very long time. So I don't want these robots to vaporize or investments to go waste once scene changes. So that's my first. Why COVID robots? Well, COVID robots always made sense from the perspective of those same use cases, which are in mainstream, which have come to light during COVID because of human contacts or avoidance of human contact. But their applications were valid before, and they would be more and more valid as time progresses. Now, how to build these particular robots? I have always been in favor of commodity technologies. That means few things which have happened in our era. One, advent of cloud. Now, what cloud has done, cloud has tremendously reduced cost of compute. Now, if we are not able to utilize that advantage which we have today, then it would be such a shame that we are not using this progression in computational science to the advantage of robotics. Second thing is, it's a fact that structural languages and impact of structural languages or structural databases is reducing. You can only do so much. While AI, and when I talk about AI, I don't talk about singularity. I fundamentally talk about machine learning part of AI. Can be extremely, extremely helpful and easy code to write, which comes in a non-structural languages. If you combine non-structural languages along with machines, for example, a robot, then it becomes a pretty, easier task to construct any kind of robot. Fundamentally, I don't recommend to build any robot, especially in today's context and state of economy. If the material cost of that robot is more than 2,500 euros, and that's all it takes to build one robot. And I'm talking about not the mass scale production. If somebody wants to do a mass scale production, that mass scale production can reduce cost to maybe 500 or 600 euros a pop. I also don't believe in creating or designing one robot for one kind of activity. I have always built robots where fundamental chases remain same. You don't have to fiddle with the design. You don't have to do the material checks. You don't have to worry about center of gravity. These are plug and play robots, and you can add more and more aspects to these particular robots based upon various use cases. For example, if a robot which can be used in a hotel to find out through some thermal sensing to find out the first check for COVID versus another robot to be used in hospital to help patients go to right doctor, complete the payments for any diagnostics, versus another robot which can be used, at airports to help passengers take their luggage, bring them to lounges or exit gates, and so on and so forth. All these three kinds of robots, if you take them an example, will have same chases, will have same architecture, very, very similar software platform, almost identical code, except the endpoint code, which can be, or the branding of that particular robot, which can be customized. And hence it doesn't take, once you build a foundational chases, once you have built one kind of robot, it doesn't takes much time to multiply them for multiple use cases. And that's a brilliant business case for people who are interested in opening robot shops. A single robot, foundation of these kind of robot fundamentally consists of LiDAR, a depth camera, IR sensors, a simple motor, encoder, a primary microcontroller, secondary microcontroller, power measuring sensors, and a battery pack. Now, if you combine all these elements together, along with shape and size of robot, which you can 3D print from a simple 3D printing shop, then the software can be written for let's say a hospital for a particular language using natural language processing, which is for the local needs, and a very simple lexical analyzer can be established to identify human instructions and convert them into robotic activities. Overall cost of once the design and the build of a robot has been done, overall cost to build a robot should not be more than 3,000 to 4,000 euros, maximum to 5,000 euros in terms of material, design, software, and of course the test part and a little bit of R&D which it requires. I encourage everyone to find use cases, but be careful about finding those use cases which are very, very specific to COVID. Go beyond that. This is a great opportunity for all of us to identify gaps which we were prolonging to be filled by human activities when they should actually be filled by machines, and let human brain and human creativity be utilized in aspects which will take human race forward. I always, whenever I travel, and especially when I travel in Asia, and when I see young kids, a very, very young workforce, 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old, sitting at back office, whether it is a call center, whether it is a reception of a hospital, whether it is a travel agent desk, whether it is information desk at a mall or at an airport, whether it is those young hands, cleaning washrooms in adverse weathers. I get more compelled and more confident in my hypothesis that certain activities can be easily done by robots, and this is a win-win situation. Only thing which I say that instead of using a hand to do these repeated activities with just muscle memory and then create a workforce which will have either a muscle memory or arthritis in their hands, why can't we use robots to do these activities while reskilling, re-educating these young brains and these young hands to create something which goes beyond the passion or objective of livelihood. And that should be the core reason to build robots, whether these are COVID robots or whether these are industrialized robots or just robots just for fun. And that should be the right reasons to build machines. COVID robot just happens to be one solution for pre-vaccination era which we are living in.
People have always been dreaming of flying and expanding horizons. From the very first aircraft in the air to those who make flying a routine. People who feel closer to the sky than the ground. People whose goal is not only to experience the freedom of flight, but also to learn how to manage it. Not only to fly, but also to fly others. These people are us.